The question is, do you want to get well? A quick question could be, who likes to be sick? Think of a headache, a cold, the flu, a sore muscle, or maybe worse, maybe you've broken a bone, a head injury, food poisoning, or a terminal illness. Does anybody like to be sick? Wouldn't everybody prefer to be well? I can think of a few instances of people faking being sick, perhaps in order to get out of doing something like the dishes or going to work or going to school. Remember the movie, my favorite about this, Ferris Bueller's Day Off? A high school kid who really doesn't want to go to school, so he fakes this terrible cold, and he, I'm sorry, Mom, and he somehow makes his temperature hot and clammy hands, and once his parents leave, he's off doing whatever he wants for the day. Then there's the story about the three guys who went fishing out on the lake one day when Jesus comes walking across the water to them and gets in the boat. When the three astonished men had finally settled down enough to speak, the first guy says, Jesus, I've been suffering from back pain since I took shrapnel in the Vietnam War. Could you help me? Jesus said, of course, my son. And he touched the man's back and he felt relief for the first time in years. The second guy, who wore very thick glasses and had a hard time reading and driving, and he said, Jesus, can you do anything about my poor eyesight? And Jesus smiled and took the guy's glasses off and threw them in the water. And when they hit the lake, his eyes cleared. And he could see everything distinctly for the first time in years. And Jesus turned to the third man, and the guy said, don't touch me, I'm on disability. Our story today is Jesus dealing with real people with real pain. People would come down to this pool because they wanted to win the pool lottery. They'd come daily, perhaps family members would bring them, or friends, or a merciful neighbor, and since most of them had no means of income, they would just be fed by people that would be nice to them as they came by. We'd see the blind, but how are they going to see to get in the water? The deaf, how are they going to hear that it's going on? The lame, how are they going to get down there? Hundreds of people laying by this pool. The young, old, men, women, and children. What would we smell if we were there? Can you imagine what a place like this would smell like? If you've ever been to a place where there are lots and lots of people who are sick and dying. Nursing homes are better now than they used to be, but I remember when I was a kid, the odor. And remember, this is a hot climate. What would we hear? People crying out in hunger, crying out for mercy. And Jesus walks into this scene. He walks into this part of town that probably everybody goes out of their way to avoid. Wouldn't you? You don't want to see that. You don't want to smell that. And he comes up of all these sick and smelly and complaining people. He often goes to places like this, where no one else would go. Places where the average person would never dream of setting foot. And you have to ask yourself why. Because God loves not just the healthy and the rich and the socially secure, those with good reputations and the elite and the first class. Your song put it so perfectly a little while ago. He loves everybody, the rich and the poor, the billionaire and the beggar, the doctor and the person with AIDS, the model family of 4 and the single parent with 5 kids. the driver, and the pedestrian. The world-class athletes and people who can't even move, like this man here at Bethesda. 38 years he's been laying there. Sharon and I looked it up last night. 38 years ago was 1979. Okay? Gas was 86 cents a gallon. 63 Americans were taken hostage by Iran. The Sony Walkman came out. $200 for a cassette player. And back there, that was a lot of money. Disco was king. On TV, you had MASH and Mork and Mindy and Charlie's Angels and The Love Boat. And my favorite, Trivial Pursuit debuted that year. And I remember that was so much fun. This fella had been hanging around like if you'd been laying around since 1979. Can you imagine that? 38 years he's been coming to this pool, rain or shine, to go to this place of mercy, this place of hope. We don't know. He may have had to spend day and night there. All we know is he came with the hope of being healed. And Jesus says, do you want to get well? Now, if I'd been laying there since 1979, I know what my response would be. What? Are you kidding me? Do I want to get well? Are you seriously asking me this? No, I just come around here and lay around here for fun. Look around. What a great place to hang out. I'm here with all my invalid friends. We got Blind Bart over there. He's wondering if he'll ever see anything. We got Lame Leroy, same spot he always is. Deaf Demetrius, he never comes when he's called. Yeah, we're all having a great time. Yes, we all want to get well. You know, that's not what this guy says. He's more bitter than that. 38 years he's been waiting for his chance to get in the water. Waiting for somebody to help him instead of helping themselves. Can you imagine his feelings when somebody yells, the water's moving, the angel's here, get in, and you can't move. He's paralyzed. He can't get to the water. He tries to get in probably. He rolls or drags himself or something, but somebody always beats him. A blind person can at least walk. A deaf person can walk. Someone with a broken arm can walk. Someone with leprosy can walk. But he can't. So somebody beats him in. Do you want to get well? Seems almost like an insensitive question, doesn't it? But Jesus doesn't ask dumb questions. He doesn't say something without a reason to say it. He had an answer for this man. But he wanted the man to think for a minute. Do you want it to happen? Why would he say it? Imagine the changes in this man's life if he were to be well. He's been laying as an invalid for 38 years. He's probably gotten used to it. He gets free handouts from people that come by, or at least some good days, some bad days. Doesn't go to work. And if he's healed, he's going to have to get a job. And if he were to be well, he'd be just like everybody else. He's not going to be different. And in some way, he's not going to be special. So maybe he wants to be sick. Maybe he likes things to stay just like they are. But Jesus doesn't give him that choice. Jesus says, pick up your mat and walk. And he's cured. His legs are strong. He doesn't wobble or trip. He's completely healed. He's walking. Now, I sit in a chair too long and I get up and I can't walk well. And he said he gets up, grabs the mat, and heads off. 38 years of suffering gone in a moment. 38 years of complaining forgotten. But suddenly, somebody else is interested in him. The Pharisees, the Jewish leadership, the expert in religion guys. They see this guy working, carrying his mat. That's a no-no. What do you think you're doing? You're not supposed to carry a mat on the Sabbath. You think he's probably thinking in his head, they see I'm carrying a mat, they don't notice I'm walking after not being able to for 38 years. What they notice is I'm carrying something. Surely they would have recognized him, and then, well, maybe not. They probably never went around that pool. Wouldn't want to be over there with the unclean people. So they nitpick at him for breaking the law. And he says, I was just doing what I was told to do. This guy, I don't know who he was, he told me to get my mat and walk. So here I am, and here I go. How sad that the first people he runs into turn on him. Nobody's helped him for 38 years, and he's finally healed, and the first people to come into contact with him gripe at him. How sad is it when sometimes when you have great news and somebody has to find a way to bring you down? So nobody else rejoices with him, and he doesn't rejoice either. Over the last several weeks, we have looked at how Jesus has dealt with different kinds of people. Some of us can see ourselves as a Nicodemus, coming to Jesus by night when nobody's watching to ask questions. Others of us can see ourselves as the woman at the well, feeling like an outcast because of who we were born to be. An outcast because how we've lived our lives. Last week, Tom spoke of a blind man who was healed, who gave praise to God for the healing. This man, healed after 38 years, was different. He was made whole, but no thanks were offered. Matter of fact, he didn't seem to have any gratitude at all. Maybe we see ourselves in this man. When the question comes up, do you want to get well? What's your answer? Sometimes it's easier, like the guy in the boat story earlier, to say, no, don't touch me, I'm on disability. I'm used to who I am and how I am, and I don't want to change now. Those who work in the field of addiction and recovery are very familiar with this sort of subconscious resistance. Whatever it is that people are trying to give up is easily named, but so hard to get rid of. Even the Apostle Paul, we can relate to what he said. He says, I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very things I hate. A wise person once said, the other side of I can't is God can. And there's the turning point for us. Christ is knocking on the door of our hearts. The moment we hear Jesus ask us, do you want to get well? And the moment we heed Christ's call to get up and pick up our mat and walk, that's when victory happens. But we choose whether or not to give thanks for it. Because as hopeless as life may seem, when the power of Christ gets its opportunity, the things that have conquered us will be conquered. The resurrection will happen in our lives, and even if our bodies are crippled, our souls are made whole. You know, when he said, pick up your mat and walk, get up, the word get up that's used in the scripture is the same word used for the resurrection. Jesus got up, was made whole, new life. If we allow that to happen for us, nothing will ever be the same again. So let's wade in the water that Jesus is swirling for us. Go, Jesus. Woo! Amen.